When Dragonfight ended, Iridikron teased the last Titan and he proclaimed that the Titans are coming to Northrend and he will wait for them, implying he's going to be the one that is going to deal with it. On one hand, we have planet-destroying gods that can rip out a world tree like a piece of grass. On the other, we have a discount Deathwing without the empowerment or even the powers of the void. Obviously, he doesn't stand any chance against him, so what really is his plan in Northrend? Well, so far we've learned about his secret base and hidden parts of Northrend we had never before seen. We've also learned more about Titan machinery and the various things they hid throughout Azeroth. Iridikron knows these things, he plans to use it against him, but what are they really? What are the Titans hiding and what is Iridikron planning to actually do? If you wanted anything Warcraft related, Gamido has the best deals on the market that you can get with my link below. You can get almost every other game's software, and they also just added mobile top-ups for all your favorite mobile games with the craziest prices. You can also use my code DORON to get yet another discount, so click my link and get the best deals at Gamido. Lore-wise, realistically, Shadowlands and Dragonfight really were kind of the dark era for the lore. I know Dragonfight was received a lot better, but lore-wise it really wasn't much better, it just scaled down on the cosmological threats. However, they did do a few really cool things here. They did really, of course, rush the Elementalists, Primal Incarnates, never explained a whole bunch of things, but they did do a really good job with Iridikron, and overall, it is a great thing that they didn't just rush him as the final boss, as he would really end up as interesting as Ferak, no one really cares. Instead, they use his character to set up the World Soul Saga. Now he's currently gone. We might get a hint somewhere, like a little tease, but overall, it is certain that Iridikron is saved for the last Titan, and overall, this is amazing because by the time we get to him, he will already be a 4 expansion character, so overall, it was a good way to introduce new characters, as WoW had a huge problem of just recycling the same characters. However, they essentially teased the last Titan and the World Soul Saga at the end of Dragonfight when he proclaimed that he was the one that made a deal with Xal'atath and that he can't wait for the Titans because he's finally going to deal with them. Now, this sounds like normal villain dialogue, but just from a regular, logical perspective, how does this make any sense? I mean, here, we're talking about a discount Deathwing without the empowerment that all he really did was get imprisoned and now started wreaking a little bit of havoc over the Dragon Isles, but really a mid-tier villain when it comes to actual power levels. I mean, we have seen much bigger threats throughout our years, not just on Azeroth. On the other hand, we have the Titans, that are essentially the equivalent of the Void Lords. Chronicle told us the Void Lords are actually jealous of the power of the Titans. These are the guys that are ordering planets, shaping planets, destroying planets. Remember, Sargeras, back in the day, while he was still a Titan, managed to split an entire planet in half with a single swing of his sword. Just imagine how ridiculous that is, and as I said, we're talking about a full 100% Titan Sargeras, not the empowered demon version. These guys ripped out the world tree like it was a weed in the ground, ripped out the strongest old god on Azeroth, Yashraj, like he was nothing. Now, all of them have been destroyed by Sargeras in the past, so their current forms are not the peak of their power, of course, but how exactly does some random elemental dragon from Azeroth stand literally any chance against it? So first of all, I think it is quite obvious that he obviously doesn't plan to gather a dragon army and to attack them in like direct combat, but instead, what has been hinted all throughout Dragonfight is that he knows something that we don't. He very likely figured out their weak point and he wants to and plans to exploit that. He almost certainly plans to use some sort of mechanism against them, or at the very least, he's expecting the Void to do most of the work so he can finish them off. I've talked about this a few times by this point, and while the lore in Dragonfight was nothing to write home about, we did actually get a book set in the ancient history of Azeroth, pre-Galakrond, that gave us some very big hints, and this has 100% slipped under the radar because not many people are talking about it. Quick summary is that Iridikron had a sister, which further made him hate the Titans. We've learned that he's essentially the primal version of Deathwing with much the same abilities as an Earth Dragon. This means that he's closely connected to the Earth, he knows places that we don't and that pretty much no one else does. The most interesting thing though is that we learned that back in the day, Iridikron's main base operation was in Northrend, and he had like this huge secret mega base underneath the continent, tunnels upon tunnels and mazes upon mazes. It was never revealed where it really was, but the way the community pinpointed it is that it's probably somewhere beneath the Icecrown Citadel or the place where Wintergrass currently is, or maybe a bit below the Ratgate, but we don't know how large this base is, as it could really span most of the continent as far as we know. Now, I've talked about this many times, but something is definitely going on under Northrend. Remember the end of Shadowlands? From the Icecrown Citadel, the very essence of Azeroth's world soul was siphoned like a drill. We've learned that Arthas built a giant drill beneath the Icecrown Citadel, and it's almost certain that this is why the Citadel was built in this exact spot in the first place. My speculation is that he probably built on top of the current Titan mechanism. I've talked about how Northrend is a really big deal. Keep in mind, the Titans' return to Azeroth has been confirmed, but they're coming to Northrend out of all the places. They're not just randomly coming to any other zone. Northrend is the most important zone when it comes to Titan control over Azeroth. This is where all the Keepers were based. This is where the entire Titan Empire was ruled from. Ulduar was the main base of operations, and recently we've learned that despite the fact that the World Core is in Khazakar, it is in fact connected to Northrend through the Manifold, which is this Titan power system. Also, Titans have various minions, but Earthen in particular are used for digging, and you can see this in Khazakar as this is just one giant hole. However, remember that Northrend also had a whole bunch of Earthen all over the place. The point is, almost certainly there is an undiscovered mechanism, a new failsafe, or something crazy going on under Northrend. My speculation is that this is where the prison over the World Soul truly is, like the center of it. Now, how does this really relate to Iridikron in any way? Personally, I really don't think he dug out the base under Northrend himself, and instead, he very likely just took over certain hidden Titan facilities. Interesting enough, at the start of the war routine, we've learned that the Nerubians from Khazakar are actually connected to Nerubians in Northrend via a tunnel, and I also think this might be a part of the Manifold or the Titan mechanism that runs deep under Azeroth that was repurposed. I think that Iridikron saw some things that no one else saw. He saw the prison. He saw completely through the Titans. He knew that these guys were just BSing everyone, just enslaving them and brainwashing them at the same time, and he probably figured out a way on how to sabotage this mechanism or use the mechanism against them. Realistically, something like this is really the only way to defeat the Titans. I mean, how else could it really happen? Are we just going to go into Ulduar and chop at their feet in a raid? I mean, it's probably going to be something akin to N'Zoth, just us using some crazy machinery to channel the energy against them. So the point is, I think Iridikron knows what it is. He knows things we're going to learn only in a few years from now that we still don't know, and he plans to use this knowledge. Honestly, by the way, this is going and we learn more about the Titans. He's really becoming less and less of a villain. By this point, he might even be on our side, but honestly, I do think he is too far gone. I think the revenge and the injustice had burned him so much, so he just went crazy. He's probably going to be a villain, but he's not going to be like a final boss or anything like that. I'm certain that he's going to be a zealot Antlight figure that is going to lead us to actual bigger cosmological threats. It's also possible that he could use the Titan machinery to empower himself, but once again, I don't think he plans to go toe-to-toe with the Titans, but he plans to expose them for the frauds that they are, and he plans to also sabotage their machinery. Thank you for watching. Check out the possible return of WoW 2 by clicking on the screen, and also check out my Real World History channel by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time.